Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm so grateful you found your way to this video today. Something tells me you needed to hear this message right now. Have you ever experienced that moment when someone who is constantly texting you suddenly goes silent? That person who is always available to talk, who seems so interested in your life, your thoughts, your dreams, and then nothing, just silence. I know that feeling all too well. And today, I want to talk about what a woman must do when a man stops talking to her. I remember years ago when I was going through this exact situation. I was dating someone who seemed completely invested in our connection. We would talk for hours every day, sharing our deepest thoughts, laughing until our sides hurt, and making plans for the future. Then suddenly the texts became shorter, the calls less frequent, until one day there was nothing but silence. The dreaded ghosting had occurred. At first, I did what many women do. I panicked. I sent multiple messages. I checked my phone obsessively. I analyzed our last conversation for any sign of what I might have done wrong. I became a detective of my own love life, searching for clues in social media posts and mutual friends' comments. Does this sound familiar to you? I'm sharing this because I want you to know you're not alone. What you're feeling is completely natural. But what I learned through that experience and many others since then has transformed how I approach relationships, communication, and most importantly, my relationship with myself. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. The first thing I want you to understand is that when someone stops communicating with you, it creates a void. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human heart. We immediately want to fill that void with something, anything, to ease the discomfort. Usually we fill it with stories. He must have found someone else. I said something wrong. I'm not good enough. He never really cared. But here's the truth. These stories are usually just that, stories. They're narratives we create to make sense of something that feels senseless. What a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is not fill that void with desperate attempts to reconnect or negative self-talk. Instead, this is the perfect opportunity to fill that space with something far more valuable: self-reflection, growth, and a deeper connection with yourself. Let me tell you something powerful that I've learned. Silence from others is often the universe's way of creating space for your own voice to emerge. When external voices quiet down, you can finally hear your inner wisdom speaking to you. And she has so much to say if you're willing to listen. So the first step in what a woman must do when communication stops is to get deeply honest with herself. Ask yourself, was this relationship truly serving my highest good? Was I being valued in the way I deserve? Was I compromising too much of myself to maintain this connection? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. I remember sitting alone in my apartment after being ghosted, feeling that crushing weight of rejection. But once I started asking myself these questions, something shifted. I realized that I had been accepting crumbs when I deserved a feast. I had been making excuses for behavior that didn't align with what I truly wanted. The silence that initially felt like rejection was actually protection. Protection from continuing to invest in something that wasn't right for me. The second thing a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is to reclaim her power. When someone withdraws their communication, it can feel like they're holding all the cards. They decide when or if the conversation continues. They control the flow of information. But that's only true if you allow it to be. Your power lies in how you respond or don't respond to the silence. And sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Not out of spite or game playing, but out of self-respect and clarity about what you deserve. I want you to consider something. What if this silence isn't happening to you, but for you? What if this is the universe's way of clearing space for something better to enter your life? What if this apparent rejection is actually a redirection to something more aligned with your true worth? The third essential thing a woman must do when communication stops is to resist the urge to chase. I know this is difficult. Society has conditioned women to believe that relationships are our responsibility to maintain. If something goes wrong, we must fix it. If someone pulls away, we must pursue them and prove our worth. But I'm here to tell you that pursuing someone who has chosen to withdraw is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. True connection cannot be forced or coerced. It must be freely given by both parties. When I was younger, I would have done anything to keep someone interested in me. I would have changed my appearance, my opinions, my goals, anything to be enough for them to stay. But with time and painful experience, I learned that this approach never works. When you chase someone who is pulling away, you're sending a powerful message, both to them and to yourself, that your worth is negotiable, that your value depends on their validation. But here's the beautiful truth I want you to absorb. Your worth is inherent. It cannot be increased by someone's attention or decreased by their silence. You were born complete, whole, and worthy of love. Nothing can change that fundamental truth. The fourth thing a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is to pay attention to her body's wisdom. Our bodies often know the truth before our minds are ready to accept it. When someone who isn't right for us pulls away, our bodies often feel relief beneath the hurt. There's a subtle release of tension we might not consciously recognize. I remember after one particularly difficult ghosting experience, I noticed that I was sleeping better. My chronic headaches had disappeared. My appetite returned. My body was telling me something my heart wasn't ready to hear, that this relationship had been causing me stress, and its absence was actually healing. So check in with your physical self. Has your breathing changed since this person stopped communicating? Are you holding less tension in your shoulders? Is your digestion improving? These physical signs can provide profound insight into what this silence truly means for your well-being. The fifth crucial action a woman must take when communication ceases is to surround herself with quality connections. When one person withdraws from your life, it can feel like a spotlight is suddenly shining on their absence, making it appear larger and more significant than it really is. This is the time to zoom out and take inventory of all the beautiful, consistent connections you do have in your life. The friends who never fail to check in, the family members who love you unconditionally, the colleagues who respect and value your contribution. When we're fixated on the one connection that's been lost, we often become blind to the many that remain intact. I've learned to see relationships like stars in the night sky. When one star disappears from view, we don't declare the entire sky empty. We simply shift our gaze to appreciate the countless others that continue to shine. This perspective doesn't diminish your feelings about the lost connection, but it does place them in a more accurate context. The sixth thing a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is to resist the temptation to make this silence mean something about her value. This is perhaps the most difficult, but most important point I'll make today. When someone withdraws communication, our instinct is often to internalize it as a reflection of our worth. If I were more beautiful / interesting / successful / funny, they wouldn't have stopped talking to me. This kind of thinking is a trap that can lead to a spiral of self-doubt and diminished self-esteem. The truth is that people withdraw for countless reasons, and most of them have nothing to do with your worth. They may be dealing with personal struggles, fear of intimacy, past trauma, or simply a realization that the connection isn't what they're looking for. None of these reasons reflect your inherent value as a woman. I want you to practice separating someone's behavior from your self-worth. Their actions reflect their choices, priorities, and limitations, not your lovability or value. This mental separation is challenging but transformative. It allows you to process the pain of their withdrawal without absorbing it as evidence of your inadequacy. The seventh action a woman must take when communication stops is to use this time to clarify her own standards and boundaries. Often when we're in the thick of a connection, especially one that feels exciting or promising, we can lose sight of what we truly need and deserve. We might overlook red flags, excuse inconsistency, or rationalize behavior that doesn't honor us. When someone creates distance, it provides a valuable opportunity to step back and assess the relationship with greater objectivity. Were your needs being met in this connection? Was the communication consistent and respectful before it stopped entirely? Were you truly compatible in values and goals? Or were you compromising crucial aspects of yourself to make it work? I've found that journaling during these periods can be incredibly revealing. Without the immediate influence of the other person's presence, you can often see patterns and dynamics that weren't clear before. Use this clarity to refine your understanding of what you require in a healthy relationship. The eighth essential thing a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is to resist the urge to vilify or idealize him. When communication ends abruptly, it's tempting to paint the other person as either a villain who callously discarded you or as a perfect match who got away. Both extremes prevent you from integrating the experience in a healthy way. People are complex, and relationships even more so. Most likely, this person had both wonderful qualities that attracted you and limitations that made a continuing relationship challenging. Holding this nuanced view allows you to honor what was valuable about the connection, while also acknowledging why it might not have been sustainable. I remember after one relationship ended with sudden silence, I swung between anger, he's a terrible person who never cared about me, and idealization, he was perfect, and I'll never find anyone like him again. Neither perspective was accurate or helpful. The truth was somewhere in the middle. He was a good person with qualities I genuinely appreciated, who also lacked the communication skills and emotional readiness for the relationship I deserved. The ninth action a woman must take when communication ceases is to stay present with uncomfortable emotions without being consumed by them. When someone stops talking to you, it triggers a cascade of feelings: rejection, confusion, anger, sadness, and often a deep sense of loss. These emotions demand to be felt. Many of us try to escape these uncomfortable feelings through distraction, denial, or premature positive thinking. But emotions that aren't processed don't disappear, they go underground, shaping our thoughts and behaviors in ways we don't fully recognize. I've learned to create space for these difficult emotions while still maintaining my center. I allow myself to feel the sadness or anger fully, but I don't identify with it completely. I remind myself, I'm experiencing rejection, but I am not rejection. I am feeling confusion, but I am not confusion. This subtle distinction makes all the difference. The 10th crucial thing a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is to recognize and honor the grief process. Even if the relationship was brief or casual, silence where there was once connection represents a loss, and all losses deserve to be grieved. Our culture often trivializes the grief associated with non-committal relationships or connections that haven't been formalized. We're expected to get over it quickly and move on without acknowledging the genuine attachment and hopes that were present. But I believe in honoring even the smallest losses with conscious grief. This might mean creating a small personal ritual to mark the end of the connection, writing a letter you never send, or simply acknowledging to yourself, this matters to me, and I'm allowing myself to feel sad about its ending. A person who can walk away from connection without honoring its significance through clear communication is revealing limitations in empathy, courage, and integrity. These limitations would have eventually impacted every aspect of a continuing relationship with them. I believe that the universe sometimes protects us through painful endings, revealing character traits that might have taken much longer to become apparent in the normal course of the relationship. What might this person's approach to ending communication be showing you about who they really are? The 50th crucial thing a woman must do when a man stops talking to her is to realize that sometimes silence is delivering a message you needed but weren't ready to hear. Often we hold on to connections that aren't aligned with our highest good because we're attached to potential rather than reality, or because we fear the discomfort of change. When someone withdraws communication, it can force us to see what we've been avoiding, perhaps the fundamental incompatibility, the lack of reciprocal investment, or the ways in which the connection was preventing our growth rather than supporting it. I found that when I look back on painful endings with the perspective of time, I can often see how they were actually answering prayers I didn't even know I was making. Prayers for authenticity, for growth, for connections that truly honor my worth rather than merely claiming to.